My Lords, what special maiden speeches we've heard here today, so I'd like to welcome you all. A special mention to the Noble Lord Evans of Sealand, which is up the road from Buckley, so we're almost neighbours. Some of my Academy of Ideas colleagues, my Lords, are organising a summer school in July entitled Upheaval, Why Politics Needs a New Language. So I've been thinking quite a lot about disputes over meanings of words. In this House of late, we've had tortuous debates about the meaning of everything from extremism, hate speech, terrorism. God knows what far right means these days, and some can't even define what a woman is. But one word that is increasingly becoming unmoored from its meaning is the Holocaust. The Holocaust is now used as a free-floating catch-all to describe all and every violent geopolitical event or even general human evil. But my plea is that words matter, and very much in the theme of the noble Baroness Deitch's spot-on speech, we must insist that the Holocaust word refers to a particular unique event in history. The Nazi death camps weren't generic. They were part of what camp survivor Elie Wiesel explains: the Holocaust was conceived to annihilate the last Jew on the planet. Despite this, even Auschwitz, a death camp designed for the genocide of the Jews, has been turned into an all-purpose symbol of human cruelty. UNESCO describes the World Heritage Site as a universal symbol of humanity's cruelty to all its fellow human beings in the 20th century. And this way, the Holocaust is, I'm afraid, being ripped out of its historical context. Meanwhile, celebrity social justice activist Naomi Klein said the quiet bit out loud in an essay in The Guardian last year. She wrote, "We are entering a new intellectual era, one in which people are openly asking if the Holocaust should be seen, quote, exclusively as a Jewish catastrophe or something more universal." And Klein goes on to argue that perhaps the Holocaust was not a, quote, unique rupture in European history, but rather a homecoming of earlier colonial genocide. This anti-Western decolonising lexicon should be a red flag. Remember, in the decolonisation narrative, Israel has been identified as the epitome of the colonial settler state, and Jews branded as the embodiment of white supremacy who deserve our ire and Hamas's actions. Klein also notes that increasingly people are demanding greater recognition for other groups targeted for extermination by the Nazis, as though this was in any way on a par with the targeting of the whole Jewish race for extermination. Beyond The Guardian's comment pages, it does seem that because we live in an era which treats victimhood as a virtue and confers on it moral authority, there appears to be a queue of identity groups laying some claim to the Holocaust experience. And there even seems to be resentment that when Jewish voices demand we recognise it was they who were central to the Holocaust, it's treated as though they've been driven by narcissism. Gradually, this has expanded into demands that any reference to the Holocaust must also mention victims of other international atrocities, whether it's Rwanda, colonial-era massacres, and inevitably contemporary events in the Middle East. So the Islamic Human Rights Commission wrote to UK town halls asking them to boycott this year's Holocaust Memorial Day on the grounds that it was morally unacceptable that Gaza is not considered a genocide in Gaza alongside the Holocaust. The problem is that wrenching the Holocaust from its historically specific context, in which all are victims, relativises and almost normalises it and renders it banal. And one of the most devastating consequences is that it makes it difficult for the public, especially new generations, to understand the true nature of this industrialised act of anti-Semitic barbarism, to even remember that the Jews were the targets at all. The consequences of this trend, what Brendan O'Neill's new book After the Pogrom calls the de-Judification of the Holocaust, was more than evident on Holocaust Memorial Day this year, as we heard from Baroness Deitch, who reminded us that a whole swathe of commentators and politicians forgot to even mention the Jews and listed almost everyone else who was killed apart from the victims, the Jews. I'm not suggesting such errors of omission are conscious acts of erasure. It somehow feels even more chilling that they're more likely examples of unconscious bias and careless forgetting. The problem with relativising the specific Holocaust is that it makes a mockery of lest we forget, and we can expect a lot more forgetting if we're not careful. The consequences of this dejudification of the Holocaust, in my mind, is that increasing numbers, especially of young people, don't even recognise when the iconography and language of historic Nazi period Jew hatred rear their ugly heads today. It's always so jolting when I talk to students involved in BDS campaigns and critique their calls for boycotts of Israeli foodstuffs as they wrench them off the supermarket shelves, or their demands to blacklist and censor entire countries' academics, artists, scientists and sports people. Or when I, looking on at scenes of blood-like red paint daubed on shop fronts, when I mention that that echoes 1930s Germany, they look at me blankly. I rather nervously disagree with the noble Lord Dubs, I know that's nerve-wracking, on his Elon Musk arm gesture point. But while whole swathes of young activists I know have been queuing up to denounce that as a Nazi salute and to see far-right fascists around every corner, when the same people then see starving, emaciated Jewish hostages paraded, jeered and humiliated by jihadi baying mobs, or they see political activists standing outside UK synagogues screaming baby killers at Jews, and those activists are my tribe, then suddenly they get a blind spot. They can't see any Nazi salutes or Nazi symbolism or anything. They don't recognise the dejudification trends of the Holocaust past and their re-emergence today, and that's worrying. So how do we counter this fake news of Jew-like Holocaust? We all reach for more education, but it bodes badly for the educational boasts that the new Holocaust Memorial Museum next door to Parliament is going to solve it all, when shamefully our very own Parliament banned a Holocaust Memorial exhibition from Westminster Hall because it was too political. Now, I'm not Jewish, and it's exactly more politics, political solidarity, that I think we need. It's why I was so pleased that grassroots campaigners Our Fight UK took the Auschwitz album Yad Vashem's street exhibition to Parliament Square the weekend before Memorial Day, and young people like Miles explained that their aim was to urgently inform the public what a real genocide looks like and centre that on the murder of 6 million Jews. And our urgent educational and political task must also include exposing the rise of the newly powerful forces who are acting to exterminate the Jews now. Yes, never again is now. Yes, I mean Hamas and Iran and the Houthis, but closer to home, the radical Islamists and their numerous apologists who, if we're honest, are influential in many political, cultural and media institutions. Too many of us look the other way, bite our lips and won't name and shame. It's about time we spoke up loudly.